Hey guys, hang on. I'm just trying to get the chat up here. Where's my glass? Oh, getting sleepy already. Okay, sorry. So thirsty. Crazy thirsty. Okay, let me go over here. Okay. So, hello there, Nicole, Kathy, Pamela, Nana Patty, Bridget, Captain Lee fan, Margot K, Jean Deloach, to Scooter, Barbie Lynn, Coldy K, Sean Sneed, Kids Galore, aka Brenda, how are you? Chris Ree, Bobby Bob, Sean Sneed, Liz Tops. Okay, so let me grab our headlines before I fall asleep. So we have a 16-year-old boy charged with the murder of a 13-year-old. Oregon police have charged a 16-year-old boy with the death of a 6th grader found dead in a park near her Beaverton home earlier this month. Let's make this a little better. Milana Lee, 13, was reported missing on May 9th and was initially thought to be a runaway. But police found her body the next day in a small stream in Westside Linear Park, less than a mile from her home. Police deemed the death suspicious at that time, and the medical examiner ruled Milana's death a homicide, even though the cause of death has not been specified. Daniel Ryan Gore, a teen with a criminal history dating back to 2020, appeared in a Washington court via video on Friday when prosecutors say they intend to try him as an adult on a first-degree murder charge. Gore did not enter a plea or speak during the hearing. Judge Brandon Thompson ordered Gore to remain in custody at least until his hearing on June 3rd. Prosecutors also requested that the judge seal the probable cause affidavit. Lee's parents and grandmother sat in the back of a courtroom during the hearing with the Russian interpreter. The family moved to Beaverton 3 years ago from Kazakhstan. Deputy District Attorney Dustin Staton told the court that Gore and another minor tried to set a movie theater on fire in 2020 and that he and another co-defendant twice entered a movie theater to damage and rob it. He faces second-degree arson, criminal mischief, and second-degree theft in those cases. Staton said Gore violated probation in February when he stole a sports coat and jacket. At that time, prosecutors had recommended that Gore be held in a detention center since he had twice run away from a shelter for minors with pending cases. The judge agreed with the county juvenile department, however, and released Gore to stay with his father and stepmother in Salem. 2 weeks later, Staton said he ran away. Gore's father notified the JD juvenile department on April 4th that he believed his son was in Beaverton, but the department failed to notify either Beaverton police or the district attorney's office. Milana Lee disappeared on May 8th when she left her home for a walk at about 4 p.m., didn't return by her 8 p.m. curfew, and she was reported missing the next day. Oregon has a complex process to move juvenile cases into adult court, and requests for the transfer are not often approved. Gore would be released from prison by age 25 if he is found guilty in juvenile court. He faces a minimum sentence of 30 years if he's convicted in adult court, but minors convicted in adult court can seek parole in 15 years. An Atlanta pastor was found stabbed to death and burned in her van on Wednesday after counseling a man who was recently released from prison. DeKalb County Police have arrested 27-year-old Christopher Griggs. They charged him with malice murder and arson in the death of Murdaugh Harrell, 57, who was the pastor at Connections at Metropolitan United Methodist Church in Atlanta. Investigators say Harrell and her van were dumped about 5 miles from the home where she had gone to counsel and mentor Griggs. A SWAT team executed a search warrant at the home and found what they believed to be the scene of the stabbing. They did not, however, find Griggs, although they spoke with him on the phone earlier on Thursday, and he told them he would turn himself in. When Griggs did not show up at the appointed time, police launched a search for him, and they located and arrested him late Thursday, booked him into jail early Friday morning. Police reports said Harrell's husband of 27 years, Antonio Harrell, found her body while tracking her phone location because he had been worried about her meeting Griggs alone. Harrell told his wife not to meet any more people who have just been released from jail for safety reasons. Also, a friend warned her about meeting people alone, but Harrell said she wanted to help people who have been in jail. The report goes on to state a friend also warned her about such meetings, but she said she wanted to help people who have been to jail. Family members said that Harrell worked diligently to help people in her communities, at times helping them raise money to pay bills. Some people said they took advantage of her. Griggs, Harrell's daughter, said had been in and out of jail several times. An arrest warrant for Griggs said he used a kitchen knife to stab Harrell and then set her on fire. According to her bio on her church website, she was a native of Chicago who moved to Atlanta more than 30 years ago. She graduated from Candler School of Theology at Emory University and earned her Master's of Divinity degree in May of 2014. She is survived by her husband Antonio and their 18 and 15-year-old daughters. Shame. Investigators found the body of a missing University of Minnesota student this week in the Mississippi River. Authorities say Austin Ray Rederath was reported missing on May 8th in Minneapolis. His body was found on Wednesday and identified as Rederath on Friday by the University of Minnesota Police Department. The Ramsey County Medical Examiner's Office said there was no indication of foul play. Police have not released a cause or manner of death. Police in Eastlake, Ohio, were searching for a 20-year-old pregnant woman who may have been taken in a violent abduction. Police took a report about the apparent abduction of Isabella Scarletta at about 12:30 p.m. on Friday. Information obtained from the reporting party indicated that the victim was possibly a target of human trafficking from out of state, and that the abductee was reported to have been drugged. Eastlake police say further investigation located an independent witness who observed the altercation abduction and corroborated the reporting party's story of what occurred outside the residence. Scarletta is described as 5 foot 2 inches tall and about 100 pounds. She was last seen wearing a gray long-sleeve shirt, gray and white pajama pants, and slippers. And no further information was known. Anyone with information is asked to call the Eastlake Police at 440-951-1400. And she's found safe. That's sad. Okay, there's a missing. The Bedford Police Department is actively seeking information on Najiba, a 14-year-old girl who's been missing since around midnight last night when she was last seen at her home in the 3000 block of Everest Drive in Bedford, Texas. She is 5'2", approximately 105 pounds, with wavy black hair and brown eyes. She was last seen wearing a blue soccer uniform with the number 80 on the back and black Nike sandals. There is no suspected foul play, and Bedford detectives are continuing to follow leads to locate her. If you see or know about her whereabouts, please contact Bedford Police Department immediately, 817-952-2127, or call 911. The father, who was going through a divorce, had tried to drown his daughter prior to the shooting. A Texas man allegedly shot and killed his estranged wife, their 4-year-old daughter, his mother-in-law, and then himself. 4 bodies were found at a Spring apartment on Thursday after the gunman's wife did not come to work. Harris County Sheriff Ed Gonzalez said the husband and wife had been going through a divorce in recent months. Neighbors say the man previously tried to drown his 4-year-old daughter. He also slashed his wife's car tires. Preliminary investigation suggests the mother and child were heading out for work and school when they approached the suspect, who opened fire. A semi-automatic pistol was found near his body. The opportunity was at hand and he carried it out, Gonzalez commented. That's very sad. In Pueblo, Colorado, a Colorado woman was sentenced to prison Thursday for doing nothing while her husband killed his own mother, chopped off her head and other body parts. Melanie Cuevas was sentenced to 4 years behind bars for being an accessory to a crime. She'll be eligible for parole in 2025. Investigators released surveillance video in October of 2019 of a man driving up to a dumpster at a Southside Pueblo car wash off of Ivywood Lane. The man then took a suitcase from his trunk and threw it in the dumpster. The suspect was identified as Anthony Cuevas, and the victim was his mother, 58-year-old Maria Cuevas Garcia. The defendant, who was Anthony's wife, later told police she knew what her husband was doing and didn't want to be part of it. However, she failed to stop him from committing the crime and never contacted anyone for help. During an interview with investigators in 2019, Melanie Cuevas said she saw her husband carrying a baseball bat, followed by a thud sound. She said the sound was the victim falling to the ground after Anthony Cuevas hit her. She could have stopped it. She had plenty of chances, said the victim's niece, Romancita Cuevas. She could have gone to the neighbors and called for help, but she chose not to. Several days after the incident, police arrested Anthony and Melanie Cuevas outside of a restaurant. Cuevas was charged with first-degree murder and violating parole, while his wife was charged with criminal impersonation. He was convicted in 2021 and sentenced to life in prison. Detectives say Anthony Cuevas removed his mother's hands, feet, and head. Additional body parts were found in April of 2020. The victim was likely killed inside her home. The suspect was staying with her at the time. Police say the suspect had only been living with his mother for a few weeks when the deadly incident happened. He had recently been released from prison. She was pretty much the life of our family. She loved to be involved in everything. She was very selfless and helpful, the victim's granddaughter, Destia Hamilton, said. For him to do this after she was willing to open her home to him and feed him and his wife, it just doesn't make any sense. Very sad. Okay. Ryan Duke, a man who was on trial for the death of a Georgia teacher, Tara Grinstead, has been found not guilty of murder by an Irwin County jury. Ryan Duke's attorney argued that our client didn't kill Tara Grinstead, but instead it was another man who had already been convicted of concealing her death. Grinstead disappeared in 2005. The former beauty queen's body has not been found, but Bo Duke's partner in the botched robbery that led to her death confessed that he had helped his friend dispose of Grinstead's body in a pecan orchard owned by his uncle. Dukes are not related, but was sentenced to 25 years in prison in 2019. Duke's attorneys say it is Bo Dukes who committed the murder. Ryan did not do this, attorney Ashley Merchant said during her closing arguments. He did not kill Tara Grinstead. He told you, the man who killed Tara Grinstead came in here and took the fifth. Duke was charged with murder after confessing in 2017. He told investigators he broke into Grinstead's home to steal money for drugs and hit her when she caught him. He also gave a written statement and led detectives to the pecan orchard where he told them he and Dukes cremated the body. He confesses through his words, his writings, his actions. He confesses through his DNA, District Attorney Brad Rigby said during his closing arguments. He is the killer of Tara Grinstead, the monster that he wants to hide. He thought so much of Tara, he burned her like household trash, Rigby said. So he was found not guilty. Police continue to search for a missing Texas mother who disappeared last year in Jasper County. Christy Russo, 31, was last seen on October 1st, 2021, off of County Road 777 in Boona. According to family members, they said bags of Russo's clothes were found a few months after she vanished off of County Road 721 and Highway 96, which is about 4 miles south of Boona. Russo's aunt, Debbie Wilson, said the reward fund for information that leads to Russo has increased from $1,000 to $11,000, adding that the money will not be released until the family is certain that Russo has been found. You don't give up hope, Wilson said. I'm still waiting on a phone call. She would call me every week, and that hasn't happened in 6 months. Jasper County Sheriff Deputy Scotty Duncan hopes anyone with information on Russo's whereabouts will come forward. We're following every lead. Any type of credible information that anybody might have, contact the sheriff. We're turning over every rock and doing everything we can. Russo is described as a white female, 5'3", weighing 180 pounds. She has brown hair, brown eyes, and a fair complexion. Anyone with information about Russo's whereabouts should contact Jasper County Sheriff's Office at 409-384-5417. The murder trial for an Alabama woman accused of killing her husband entered its third day Thursday at a Huntsville courtroom. Former Alabama nurse Nikki Capello is on trial for the poisoning death of her husband, Jim Capello, who passed away from excessive amounts of insulin in his system. Prosecutors said that this week that Jim was not a diabetic. During opening statements, prosecutors said Capello was arrested a few days after Jim's family reported him missing. His body was found in the couple's garage at their Huntsville home in 2018. Capello resisted requests by law enforcement to search her home, prompting them to get a search warrant. After obtaining a search warrant, investigators found Jim's lifeless body on a tarp near his car, with his feet positioned on the car's floorboards. Investigators also found a shovel, a freshly dug hole, and a pair of muddy women's shoes at the property. A medical examiner indicated that Capello had a large amount of insulin in his system, which can't be ruled out as the cause of death. However, since the needles used were so tiny, it was impossible to find the locations where he was injected. Huntsville police said Capello stole insulin from North Alabama Specialty Hospital, where she worked at the time. She then allegedly called a friend and confessed to killing her husband. She then allegedly asked her friend for help to dump the body. The friend reportedly contacted authorities instead. James Capello, a private investigator, reportedly grew suspicious that his wife was abusing narcotics. Before his death, he was compiling evidence to file for divorce and get custody of their young daughter. He's also been accused of having an affair, something that the defendant discovered, the prosecution said. Hold on a minute. I got to get a drink because I'm just dry here. Marjorie Capello's co-workers reportedly told investigators that she was open about having marital issues and that she stated that the only way she would be free of her husband is if he was dead. A Madison County grand jury indicted Marjorie Capello in 2019, finding that prosecutors had probable cause to proceed with a murder charge. So maybe we'll catch up a little bit on that trial on Monday. An Illinois man who's the vice president of a human services nonprofit organization was arrested on Tuesday for allegedly possessing child pee. According to the media, Eric Kroll, 48, was ousted from his board position at Kids Matter after child pee was found on his electronic devices. Police executed a search warrant at Kroll's home near Darien the same day he was arrested amid an investigation into child pee distribution and possession. DuPage County State Attorney said Kroll's arrest was not related to Kids Matter, which is a local nonprofit that advocates for children's well-being and offers support services. Kroll had 4 videos of girls apparently younger than 13 and a picture of a girl under 18. DuPage County Assistant State Attorney Amanda Mendel claimed that authorities were alerted to Kroll after the messaging app Kik contacted the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children after a user viewing and distributing child pee. Kroll admitted to being the Kik user. Mendel said he also confessed to downloading and sharing illicit materials in chat rooms. Bail for Kroll, who was charged with possession of child pee, was set at $150,000. Nina Menace, the CEO and executive director of Kids Matters, told the media that the organization learned of Kroll's arrest on Wednesday. The board subsequently held a meeting and voted for his removal. Kroll is due court next on June 18th. Florida woman was charged this week with killing an elderly man and burying him in a shallow grave in the backyard. An arrest report for 50-year-old Cleo Marsha Trice says that Miami Gardens police responded to her home Monday night after a neighbor called and said that Trice told him she had killed the victim. Authorities executed a search warrant early Tuesday and found the body of an 81-year-old man beneath a wooden plank with dirt on top of it. Police say they found Trice in the front yard of the home when they arrived, and that she admitted to hitting the man in the head and strangling him to death before dragging his body into the backyard. The victim has not been identified. Neighbors said that Trice and the man were married. The arrest report said that Trice told investigators they were in a relationship that had developed into a father-daughter relationship. She said they frequently had arguments and physical fights. The report said the two had lived together since 2008. I know she used to get angry with him every once in a while because he used to make a mess around the house, said a neighbor, David Johnson. I usually see her husband outside on the veranda, but then a couple of days I haven't seen him, said Carlos Savazan, another neighbor. Apparently she couldn't keep the secret much longer. Trice has been charged with second-degree murder and is being held at the Turner Guilford Night Correction Center without bond. Investigators have not discussed a motive for the murder. Former University of Kansas soccer goalie's husband called police Monday night to say that God had told him to kill his wife. Lawrence police found Reagan Gibb Merrick, age 25, dead in the apartment she shared with her husband, Chad Merrick, who was 26 years old. The couple married last fall. He told us that God told him to do it, Lawrence Police Chief Rich Lockhart said. Lockhart also said that there were preliminary indicators that Chad Merrick was not mentally stable. We call it being in psychosis, so obviously that is something we will be investigating as well as this case continues. Investigators said an autopsy is scheduled for Thursday and will determine the cause and manner of death. Detectives are looking into whether domestic violence was a factor, but couldn't say if they'd been called to the apartment in the past. A GoFundMe set up to help defray costs said that Gibbs Merrick planned to return to school to study to be a physician's assistant. Her former college team where she last played in 2019 was devastated. Our soccer program is heartbroken to hear about the tragic loss of Reagan, says KU's soccer head coach Mark Francis in a statement. She was a tremendous teammate and a young woman who touched so many during her time at Kansas. Reagan will always be remembered for the impact she had both on and off the field. We share our condolences to her family, friends, and teammates during this difficult time. We are devastated to hear about the loss of former KU student-athlete Reagan Gibbs. Our KU family sends our love, support, and prayers to Reagan's family, friends, and former teammates as we all mourn her loss, says the KU Director of Athletics, Travis Goff. Meanwhile, Chad Merrick is charged with murder and is being held on $1 million bond. He is due back in court on May 24th. An Alabama-born Florida man is expected to plead guilty on Thursday to federal wire and mail fraud and money laundering charges, all related to his alleged romance scams that netted him more than $750,000 from at least 21 women in 8 states. Brian Wedgeworth, 46 years old, was indicted last October and arrested in Nashville not long afterwards. The indictment says that Wedgeworth told the women he was a wealthy doctor and surgeon, using at least 13 different aliases. Thursday's plea won't even be his first. He pled guilty to dozens of fraud and forgery charges in Georgia and Alabama, and court records show he was wanted in Ohio and Alabama when he was arrested last year. Takesha Johnson's story is typical. She met Brian Adams, on the dating site Plenty of Fish in 2017, and she was careful. She even told Adams, who was in truth Wedgeworth, that she was broke when he asked her about her financial status. But when he offered to pay off her debts and send her $20,000, she relaxed a little. Adams asked Johnson for a favor. He asked her to finance a Rolex watch for him to help her rebuild her credit. He would pay her back, he said. Johnson didn't want to go that far, so she bought 2 lesser brand watches for $3,000 and met him at a mall in Jacksonville to hand them over. And then her bank called. The $20,000 Adams used to pay off her bills bounced for insufficient funds. A search of Google found mugshots, except that they were for a Brian Wedgeworth, not a Brian Adams, and he wasn't a doctor. Wedgeworth disappeared from Johnson's life. She never gave up searching for him, but she died a month before the indictment. Wedgeworth has been scamming since at least 1996, when he pled guilty to charges in Jefferson County, Alabama, but he's rarely served a full sentence. Fraud is the best job in the world, says Francesca Gervasio Franzen, an administrator of the Beware Romance Scammers Facebook group. He's going to go back and just do it again. Wedgeworth never lived an extravagant life despite the cash, Super Bowl tickets, and expensive watches he received. Maybe this time he'll spend some real time in prison. If his guilty plea is accepted, he faces up to 20 years in prison. Tiffany Maxim, Takesha Johnson's 30-year-old daughter, says she thinks her mom is posthumously behind the federal indictment. Once she passed away, I think that was her spirit finding him and making sure justice was served. Maxim said, "That was my mom's doing. That was her final hurrah." Florida man called 911 after fatally shooting his elderly wife and his adult stepdaughter on Wednesday in what is being investigated as a double murder-suicide. Thomas Schultz, 64, was found dead with a self-inflicted gunshot wound at his Riverside home, where the bodies of his 80-year-old wife and stepdaughter, who was in her 50s, was also discovered. Before taking his own life, Schultz called the police, claiming they were in an impossible situation and was planning to harm himself. "I have to go. I'm fixing to shoot myself," Schultz told the 911 dispatcher before abruptly ending the call. Schultz's wife and stepdaughter reportedly had terminal illnesses. Hillsborough County Sheriff Chad Chronister said the stepdaughter was found lying on a hospital bed with a feeding tube attached. Schultz was reportedly found on the back porch next to a revolver while his wife was in a bedroom. It appears both women were fatally shot in bed as they slept. "We have had no previous calls for service at this residence. None of the occupants have any type of criminal history." Chronister also noted that the 911 dispatcher who handled Wednesday's call recently lost a family member to suicide. The nature of the 2 women's illnesses was not disclosed. Let's see. Let's talk about the Murdaughs who we showed the house when we were in South Carolina. There's something, let's see here. So disgraced South Carolina attorney Alex Murdaugh allegedly made a series of unsubstantiated and contradictory claims about a housekeeper who suffered a fatal fall on his property in 2018 to receive substantial insurance payouts. 911 calls and various documents reported that at the time of Gloria Satterfield's fall, Murdaugh had an umbrella insurance policy with Nautilus for $5 million and an underlying insurance policy with Lloyd's of London for $505,000. Murdaugh was allegedly the only person to claim that Satterfield tripped on his dogs and that she was not working at the time. The news outlet reported that it was crucial that Murdaugh prove the deadly February 2018 incident was his fault, as if it was determined Satterfield's accident was due to clumsiness or a prior car accident, Nautilus would not pay for the policy. Satterfield was reportedly in a car crash a day before she fell on the Murdaugh's property. Murdaugh claimed Ms. Satterfield was at his property, not to perform work for Murdaugh and his family, but to collect a check for work performed for someone else, thus avoiding a workers' compensation defense. A lawsuit filed by Nautilus alleged. In October, Murdaugh was arrested for allegedly stealing $4.3 million from Satterfield's estate, which was intended for her family. His arrest came as he left a rehabilitation center in Florida, where he underwent treatment after he was arrested in September for a botched suicide for hire plot that entailed an ex-client, Curtis Smith, 61, fatally shooting him so Murdaugh's surviving son would receive a $10 million life insurance payout. Lloyd's of London attorney Scott Wallinger wrote that no one witnessed Satterfield's fall, but Alex's wife Maggie went outside upon hearing a commotion. Maggie also claimed that of their 4 dogs, their 1.5-year-old Labrador Retriever would often get excited and seek attention, potentially blaming that canine for Satterfield's fall. However, Alex was alleged the only person to directly state that Satterfield fell on his dogs, even though he was not there at the time. It remains unknown when Alex allegedly planned to defraud the insurance companies. On June 7th, Maggie and Paul, 22, were found fatally shot at the lodge. No arrests had been made in connection with their slayings, and at the time of his death, Paul was awaiting trial on voting under the influence charges for a February 2019 crash that killed Mallory Beach, 19 years old. Months after their murders, Alex allegedly carried out the suicide for hire plot that left him shot in the head. A day before the shooting, Alex was forced out of his family's law firm amid allegations he misappropriated funds. He was arrested for reportedly swindling Satterfield's family in October. Alex currently faces a total of 74 charges amid allegations of stealing money from a slew of clients and his former law firm. He has not been charged in connection with his wife and son's murder yet. He remains jailed on a $7 million bond. $7 million bond. Louisiana police say they have arrested a woman after a 10-month-old was found dead at a residence during a welfare check on Monday. Broussard police officers also found a 2-year-old in critical condition, though the nature of her injuries were not disclosed. Tammy Klaus, 49, was arrested in connection with the case. Klaus is reportedly the children's caretaker. She remains jailed on charges of second-degree murder and second-degree cruelty to juveniles. The 2-year-old remains hospitalized. The 2 children have not been publicly identified. Okay, let's see now. A Maine 18-year-old vacationing with his family at the Jersey Shore died Tuesday when a large hole he and his 17-year-old sister were digging with frisbees collapsed on them. Emergency crews responded to the scene at Toms River just before 4 p.m. The girl was rescued, but Levi Caverly was trapped under the shifting sand, and rescuers could not reach him in time. Toms River Mayor Mo Hill told the station that the teens dug a 10-foot hole in the sand with frisbees before it collapsed. This is terrible. Emergency radio traffic as crews from neighboring towns raced to the scene. One is still buried up to the chest. Another one is below the sand. One is completely submerged under the sand, probably 10 feet, another said. The crews used ladders, buckets of water, and heavy machinery in a desperate attempt to reach both teens. Authorities caution that sand is not a stable element for digging large holes. A 13-year-old boy died on Monday after he was trapped Saturday in a tunnel he was reportedly digging beneath a sand dune in Utah's Coral Pink Sand Dune State Park. Ian Spenlove was still alive when rescuers got him out of a collapse, but he never regained consciousness. Wow, that's sad and really scary, and they were having a vacation. So sad, 10-foot hole that collapsed on them. Wow. Investigators think the bodies of the slain Delphi girls, Abby Williams and Libby German, were staged and moved at the crime scene. Court documents show that a large amount of blood was lost by the victims at the crime scene. Because of the nature of the victims' wounds, it is nearly certain the perpetrator of the crime would have gotten blood on his person and clothing. Although the exact murder weapon is redacted in the warrant, the killer likely used an edge weapon given the amount of blood found at the crime scene. The victims, according to the warrant, didn't have any defensive wounds, but some articles of clothing were taken from them and removed from the scene when the killer placed the victims' bodies in what investigators called a staged manner. Let's see here. There's a difference between a scene that's staged and a scene that is posed. If a perpetrator staged the scene, they did that for their benefit. So you try to make it look like there's an accident. Posed, which I believe is what this scene is that for the offender's gratification. Meanwhile, Keegan Klein, an Indiana man accused of child exploitation and child peace, as police told him he was the last person to communicate with one of the girls. According to Business Insider senior reporter and co-founder of a podcast, Libby had an interaction with Klein on Instagram, but thought she was interacting with the person in a photo that Klein posted as himself in an attempt to catfish young girls into sending nude photos. Libby was apparently enthralled by the profile. She wanted to meet up with him. She was being potentially catfished by the person who, of course, looked nothing like him and was nothing like what he had portrayed online. Heavily redacted court documents state that the state police and the FBI encountered Klein in 2017 while conducting a search warrant in Peru, Indiana. That is where they discovered the fake Anthony Schatz profile soliciting minor girls online. Investigators seized several devices, but Klein contacted them a few days later about a device that hadn't been seized. When investigators got the device, they found that many files had been deleted and social media apps uninstalled. I am exhausted, and that is going to be it. So let's see what you guys are doing. Hi, Sassy. Hi, Debbie. Hi, Jenny D1. I am exhausted, so it's 11:30. I really have got like totally different hours. I'm up at like 6 or 8 in the morning, and now I'm totally exhausted. So that's going to be the end of the true crime. Tomorrow we have auctions, so look for us around I don't know, 3:30 start or something like that. I'll put it on. Might start a little later. All right, but I've got. Why do they have this good suspect yet? No arrest. Seems like they're saying they know who did it. I don't know. Hi, WL. All right, I'm gonna go to bed. I am exhausted. I'm totally on a different sleep pattern. All right, so I'm gonna go to bed. I'll talk to you guys tomorrow. Love you. Goodbye.